Here's how this other commission is going. I got all these leaves ready to put on. Once I figure out if this is final, because what I like to do, I'm out of breath because I just did a Chloe ting, is I like to sleep on it, take a picture of it, and then bring it into my computer to look at it, especially compared to reference photos. When you shrink the image on a screen, it's easier to see the mistakes. But this is like a composite of multiple, like at least 2 pictures, so I'm not going to have anything really like exact like this to work from, so I feel like this is kind of going to be it. I feel like this is a good place to be, I guess. I put a chunk of hydrangea in here just like on a whim, and the water has evaporated away, but did it like technically work? Is this thing actually rooting? What? Like, is that really what's happening here? Look at that. It's even got a leaf node going. Holy crap. Because I've heard sometimes that putting it in dirt when it isn't, like you can root things in water, but it isn't really strong enough to actually plant anywhere. But, you know, that's wild. We were a little bit too successful finding discount Easter candy. Literally, it's Thursday. Maybe went a little bit out of hand. I'm not very good at rationing. Shiny Eggies, M&M's, off-brand Eggies. Down here is the malt ball eggs. Remind me of my childhood, these ones. I had a question on Patreon, which was good. It was like, keep sketching things, and then when I try to use watercolor to color them, I ruin it. And like, do I have any tips to deal with that? And I gotta say, like, it's really relatable question. Unfortunately, it's a bit vague because I don't know exactly what it means to ruin a sketch, and that can mean so many different things to so many different people. But it made me think of when I first started with watercolor, because that was the root of the question, how to get really started and deal with the feeling of just ruining everything you start. And I mentioned before that a lot of it is actually just because it's not finished, and watercolor has a really annoying ugly stage through most of it. It's a medium that you have to trust and work at. It's not an instant gratification kind of medium, and in some cases it is. It's very like conflicting. And so I was relating it to my first year that I started using watercolor, and this is literally just like a piece of copy paper or something. I just used it in this sketchbook, and this is just how gosh, this is high school. This is where I would end it, I guess. I don't know if I just like gave up on it halfway through, but it looks not great. It looks fun because I like the texture of the watercolor, which is why I kept using it, but you can barely see anything because of the way that the cheap paper doesn't absorb any of the paint really. These are really cheap paints as well, so the pigment is not going to be that good. And in this case, layering wouldn't help because the paper sucks. And so yeah, I could look at this and say that I ruined my sketch by trying to color it with watercolor, but the truth is, like, it's just not finished. And also, when we're using colors, we forget about tone and shading, and the fact that you look over here and it's much more interesting if that's not, like, I didn't finish it really, but there is a huge difference, which is like it has very light lights and very dark darks. So I had the outline, which is dark black, and just having that black outline pumps it up visually. So we have to remember that contrast is such a big deal visually, and we get that when we're sketching, we get that when we're drawing in grayscale, but when we start adding colors, we forget about that kind of thing. I don't know, I just know that we don't really pay much attention to contrast when we're adding color. So yeah, I don't know, my advice would be if you're having an issue like this where you just feel it doesn't look great, maybe it's an issue of contrast and tone, in which case I would say, like, if I was starting with watercolor, I might just pick a color. Like with the Patreon sketchbook, see if you can get different kinds of tones first, and I guess just kind of get used to playing with good contrast in tone, because I think people do struggle from going from grayscale sketching and drawing to color for that reason. Just start with like maybe 1 or 2 colors, like a very small number of colors, and then see what you can make with that, because I think sometimes we just have too many color choices. I don't know. I don't really know what the original problem mentioned is, so I can't really speak specifically to it, but I'm hoping that this helps somebody. I don't know. On Patreon, our sketchbook theme is what's growing in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I am. So I wanted to just take a walk and go around and look for things that are popping up out of the earth this time of year. And this month I'm going to do a bit more pen sketching this time. It's not too like involved, you know, and I like sketching. It's really simple. So that's what we're doing over there. So it'll be nice just taking walks around, trying to capture whatever is active out there. A lot more than I expected, actually. He's like, what? Excuse me?